Well, good evening, folks. Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate you coming out and helping us make better lives and better transportation, improving the transportation system across South Dakota. It's engagement opportunities like this. It's also the Brown County Fair, the conversations we have along the street, the calls that we take, the calls that you give that help us to make better lives and better transportation, because we get to hear from the customers, those using the facilities and our stakeholders, but what they see are important regarding our transportation system. So thank you for coming out tonight. The meeting tonight is being recorded. We're also on Facebook Live and Zoom. So we got a couple different media options. In case you're wondering why I have a red light in my pocket, that's a microphone that picks up for a Facebook and Zoom. So I don't have to hold it in front of me. You're wondering why you can't hear it a little bit louder. It's in my pocket and Jason's too. So we're gonna go ahead and handle it that way as well. We may have some questions that come in on Facebook and Zoom tonight. If we do, we'll repeat those. And our intent tonight is really to have a conversation. For those of you that have attended our meetings in the past, you realize that it's been some talking and then we take comments. Instead, we really want a conversation. So I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of homework as you're listening to me go through the particulars. I'm going to ask some questions about safety and how we can improve safety overall across our state. General questions in safety. So I want input. I want your thoughts, ideas, things you've seen in other states. Also about our infrastructure. How is our transportation system? What have you seen work well in the counties? What have you seen work well in other states? What are we doing well? We want to leverage the things that we're doing well. We also want to improve in the areas that we aren't. Our transportation isn't the DOT's, it's all of ours. It's the people that live here, it's people that travel through our state. We want to make sure it's as best as it can possibly be. And again, through conversations like we're going to have tonight, I think we can make it that way. I want to start off with just a few introductions. With us tonight, we have Representative Mike Wisegram, District 24. Mike, thanks for coming out tonight. We also have Secretary Joel John. Secretary, thanks for coming. Director Kelly Beck is here as well. And former Director Mike Durick. You didn't know I was going to call you out, but I need to. Director of Operations Mike Durick. Thanks for coming out tonight, and everybody, again, we appreciate it. So Jason and I, we're going to be a little interactive up here, and again, we want to hear from you tonight and get some input. Jason is going to go ahead and introduce some of the members of his team and maybe give a background of what the Pierre region is and where it's at. Jason?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. For the slide here to the next one.
We'll get there. Blame Zoom. So Jason, as we're getting this going, maybe a little bit about the Pierre region, essentially a central part of the state.
Absolutely. So the Pierre region consists of the geographical area from east to west, if you're looking at the interstate, from almost Chamberlain to almost Wall. So, and it also goes from north to south, from the North Dakota border to the Nebraska border. So it's a large geographical area. We have about 2,200 miles of roadway that we're responsible for. And tonight I have a couple of our area engineers responsible for some of these areas. Going from north to south, we are broken down into 3 area offices. Starting with the Mobridge area in the north, John Billbrandt, his contact information is on the screen. He's not able to attend tonight, but can get a hold of him if you have some questions about any projects going on in that area. The area shaded in the tan color, that's the Pierre area. And Dean Bandwilly is the area engineer. He's sitting in the back of the room. He can help answer any questions going on in that area. And then in the southern portion of the state, from the interstate south, that's what we call our winter area. And Doug Sherman, our winter area engineer, is also in the back of the room, can also answer any questions. We also have one other dignitary from the Pierre region in the back of the room. He didn't know I was going to call on him tonight either. Jim Hyde is our Pierre region operations engineer. He's responsible for most of the maintenance type operations, the equipment, the snowplow trucks, and all of our infrastructure going on in the Pierre region. So go ahead, Mike.
So Jason, I know we call it God's country, you call it Pierre region, but generally, as we think about the Pierre region and we think about our transportation system overall, it's meetings like this. I mentioned that earlier. We were at the Black Hills Stock Show over the winter as well, trying to get input, going to where people are. So thank you for coming to where we're at tonight. We're continuing trying to find ways to engage our customers more and to get more input from them. So again, hopefully you've had a chance to write a couple notes down, things you want to bring up about safety and our infrastructure and projects overall as we move forward. Our transportation system, it doesn't just get built by magic or anything along those lines. There's funding that's needed to build a transportation system. In your packet, you can see what we're planning on investing in transportation over the course of the next 4 years. Yes, that is $1.2 billion that's planned for next year. There's a little bridge that we call the Flat Winter Bridge here in South Dakota, over a mile long. That bridge alone is estimated to be at over $250 million. Now, I'm hoping it comes in at $100 million because that lets us build more projects, but $250 million for one project. For those of you that have been in transportation for a while, I remember when our entire program for the entire state was less than that. You know, we have one project that's planned for that much. As you think of South Dakota, and the Pierre region is really the God's country, the middle of it, the big connections that we have in South Dakota are east-west connections, and the one thing that divides it is the river. We even talk about East River and West River. Knowing that these bridges are going to be very expensive for us to build, we've tried to work through what we call a major bridge investment study, taking a look at what the investment needs are for bridges and those major structures into the future. If we don't plan for those and try to accommodate when we can rebuild those structures, we can't accommodate $250 million year after year after year. So we're trying to plan ahead, trying to phase those out. So I mentioned Flat Winter's coming up. That's planned to be let next fall for construction starting in 2025. Next, we'll be looking at the Forest City Bridge up by Gettysburg. And then we have the Deadwood Box out in Deadwood. These major investments that we need to focus on in order to maintain our transportation system. Now, the bridges that I talked about, they aren't the fundamental component of where we need to invest. Our number one focus is safety. The graph up there shows our crash history and our trends over the course of the last 10 plus years. Unfortunately, after 2019, we saw an increase in the number of fatal crashes and serious injury crashes. Our goal is 0. Now that may sound like a very grandiose goal, but I guarantee if we ask you about your family members or the people you know, well, how many folks would you be willing to sacrifice on the transportation system? Your answer is going to be 0. And that's our goal too. Now I think we need to understand that there's also driver behavior components of things that come into play. People don't always make the right decision. People make errors. I guarantee all of us have made plenty of errors today. But as we look at those errors and the mistakes that people make on the road, how can we keep them on the road and how can we keep them safe? So we've implemented a few different innovations, and a couple of those that I want to hit on really have no purpose from a transportation standpoint other than correcting the behavior. You see the upper left-hand corner? That's the centerline rumble strip. As we build roads, especially asphalt roads, the weakest area is right at the center. Yeah, we're putting centerline rumble strips in there. We're working on innovations there to help improve that, but we want to make sure people don't cross center line. And if they do cross center line, they're reminded to get back in their lane. Lower left-hand corners are shoulder rumble strips. Same thing. I think everybody has hit a rumble strip. If you haven't, we'll take you for a ride. But I guarantee everybody in this room has hit a rumble strip before. And it's maybe a little error on your end. Maybe you weren't paying attention. Maybe you were looking out the window, or maybe a wind gust pushed you over. But it reminded you to get back in your lane. And these are important because our number one fatal crash in South Dakota is a single vehicle runoff roadway. The numbers up there show the benefits of those shoulder rumble strips. Now, our number 2 fatal crash we have in South Dakota is intersections. So as we take a look at those 2 areas, what can we do to help improve them? We're taking a look at new design and innovative technologies trying to improve safety overall. The Virgin Diamond Interchange, if you've been out to Rapid City, the La Crosse Street Interchange, the first one in South Dakota, is open for traffic. And it's functioning great. Every time I've been out there, which is 3 now recently, I've not only seen traffic not backing up into the intersection at the signal, but also pedestrians using it and being at ease in those facilities. We're also looking and moving toward the completion of the 41st Street Diverging Diamond Interchange in the lower right-hand corner. Dynamic message boards and Safe Travel USA, the 511 app, are all things that we're trying to do to help improve safety overall. As we think of safety, I think we need to, again, focus on what are we trying to achieve with it. So I want to open it up a little bit after Jason gets done talking a little bit about the safety projects you have planned in your region.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. So in the Pierre region, we're built a little bit different. We have not as much traffic. We have more but we do have more pedestrian traffic. So that's something that is a little bit different from the rest of the state. We don't have the traffic volumes on a 41st Street or a La Crosse Street in Rapid City. So we're doing things a little bit different. We're approaching safety from an aspect of what's happening on our county systems. So we're doing county signing projects, improving the sign visibility on those systems. We have a lot of rural roadways, so where we have a lot of asphalt roadways with gravel shoulders. Some of our safety projects that we're doing, we're improving those gravel shoulders, turning them to asphalt shoulders. Those are the types of improvements that we really like to focus our efforts on because we get the most bang for our buck here in the Pierre region. Pavement marking visibility is one of the things that, based on our customer satisfaction surveys, that our customers, our citizens, really focus on and really want. So we're doing a lot of pavement marking projects. But like I said at the beginning here, we have a lot of pedestrian traffic as well. And some of the big projects that mean a lot to our constituents are pedestrian walkway paths. In some of our areas of the state, we have a lot of folks walking on the shoulders on the side of the road. So we're doing projects to get them off of the road, get them away from the traffic, and make it safer for the car, not only cars, but also the pedestrians. We have significant projects going on in LaPlante, in Wambly, in Waukepa, and also right here in Pierre to improve that pedestrian safety. So those are some of the things that we're really focusing our efforts on. We have about $50 million worth of work in pavement preservation and safety projects slated for the next 4 years.
Huge investment. But that investment, again, I think we can get better at it. So as we think about it, and again, this is where I want to hear from you. How can we get better? Where do you see opportunities, whether it's on the road or number one fatal crash at single vehicle runoff roadway, at the intersections, and even in the car, right? I think we all acknowledge that the behavior aspects that come into play as people are behind the wheel. So I want to hear from you. If you're willing to share some ideas and thoughts, things you've seen in other states, maybe things you've seen as you went across the pond or traveled the world, but ideas and thoughts that you've seen and things that are working well. So is anyone willing to share some ideas? Jason, yeah, go ahead, Jason. Just introduce yourself and who you represent.
Jason Reeves with the Concrete Pavement Association. Just a couple things out of the Pierre region, just in my travels through the state. And by the way, my travels in the last week and a half across the state, I really appreciate seeing all the DOT's money going to work. Good, very good looking projects out there. Obviously, like we talked, low volume roads, typically those are light on the width on the shoulders or they're gravel shoulders, and widening those out, not that that will probably benefit me, but as far as the safety portion goes, getting those shoulders widened or paved with those rumbles, I think is a good thing for the Pierre region to look at. And then, like you talked with the trails, there was the one on 83 south of Mission that was completed, and unfortunately, I think some people might think that those are unnecessary in those areas because they don't see those people walking that much. They don't, if you live in Sioux Falls like I do, it's like there's nobody that's south of Mission. But, you and me and others know that that is actually very necessary down there. And whether it's in south of Mission or in McIntosh or in Wandley, I think those trails are a really good thing and to keep investing in them.
Right. Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for the input. And we continue to transition our idea of what transportation is. I think years ago, everybody thought transportation was getting in your car or your truck. That transition is continuing to change and evolve. Transportation is walking, it's bicycling, it's transit, it's all these things, and how do they intermix is a big part of that too. Are transit stops available? Do we have adequate pedestrian paths out there? And your comment regarding shoulders and surfacing our shoulders and trying to ensure that there's a recovery area out there are focus areas that we continue to work on, and I'm glad to hear that you're seeing some of that out there, and you're seeing that as a need too. As we talk to other customers and do our customer satisfaction survey, that's one of the areas that generally from a customer satisfaction survey is important too. Jason, maybe some work that's going on. I think we've got a project going up north of Holden. Actually, this year it's not showing up in our plan, but that's one where we're trying to widen out the shoulders and do some reconstruction.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about several grading projects that we have coming up over the course of the next 4 years, but one of them that we're implementing, we're constructing as we speak, is Highway 47 north of Holden. This roadway was a narrow roadway, had a lot of traffic incidents, we'll call it, whether they be accidents. And we actually had some fatalities on that roadway before we got to work on it. It's a narrow road, not much shoulders, and steep drop-offs. We're coming through that roadway, and by the time we're done, we're going to have a very nice wide roadway, wider lanes, and really nice shoulders on that road. So that's going to be consistent with a lot of the projects that we're going to be talking about here tonight, a little bit later.
Any other comments, thoughts on safety, what folks are saying? Yeah. Mark? Mark's going to bring over the non-microphone microphone so the folks online can hear it.
For counties, I've been a county commissioner since '91. The big program is really essential for safety, I think. What we like to do is every once in a while, maybe every 10 years or so, fill up a draw that's had a bridge and put culverts at the bottom. And that way the snow doesn't collect on the hill, you know, because there's no hill left. And safety goes without saying that if you have a flat surface, it's a lot safer than a hilly one. So that's what we try to do. And this big program, I think it'll help us do another one of these before too long. And otherwise, I'd just like to say that the department does a tremendous job of safety across the state. I went to Brookings, graduated in '72, and there's a world of difference between the roads now and what they were then, especially that from Arlington to Brookings. We always figured that coming back from Brookings to Pierre, if you got to Iroquois, you didn't have it made. But if going the other way, if you got to, the road from Pierre to Iroquois wasn't too bad, but from then on, you sure didn't have it made if you went that way. But I guess that's my main thing was the big program.
Just a question for you on the big program. I think the application deadlines are coming up here in August time frame, and there's also a federal program too. So there's a big program, then some federal aid that's going to be there. Thoughts on that? Is that something that you're seeing from a county standpoint that's much needed, or is that something that, you know, each county is a little bit different? Totally understand that, especially as we talk about bridges. But
we've applied for some, and we've got a couple of them. So it's been pretty good for us.
Good. I'm glad to hear the safety improvements are going with those two. Thank you so much. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Joe Jacob, Martin, South Dakota. I should probably wait till you get on the construction part of it, but you're talking about the safety.
Safety overall,
That's
yeah.
one of the main reasons I'm here.
Okay.
2 years ago, you built from the county line at Bennett County, 3 miles up to the Harrington Corner, we call it. And there's 4 families live down there, and one of them has 7 kids. And the school bus comes up to that Harrington Corner, right where you stopped. And that's got a bad downhill to it. On the 7th of May last year, I was with that John O'Neill, and he put his kids on that bus. And the bus went to turn around, and coming from the west going east, that's a steep hill there. Semi missed that school bus less than a foot. Because that's the 3rd time that's happened this year. And you guys are going to rebuild that road in a couple of years.
Yes, sir.
And the reason I'm here tonight is let's take some more of that hill off of there. So you can see, they can see the oncoming. When you do your construction work, to begin adding on that you're going to do in 2 years.
Sure.
That's a dangerous corner, and we don't want pilot kids in that ditch.
Nope. No, thank you, Joe, for sharing that. And I know that Doug's here and Jason's here as well. Definitely take that in account. Question for you: besides that location, are you seeing other issues where there's hills near intersections that? And I know you and your family haul, and you guys do quite a bit of farming there. And Mark's got the microphone again, but is that something you're seeing more of it across the state, or has that gotten better? Are there areas that you think we should focus on?
Much better. You rebuilt 73 in that, and when you did that, we were having a real hard time with that Highway 73. Okay. A real struggle with machinery and hills and curves, and you improved that 100%. Okay. The rest of it, when you get this 18 on done, so that 18 needs done bad, because even the approaches, when we come out of in and out of some of those approaches with cattle trailers, you can't even get on the road.
Okay.
Them approaches even got to be wider or something, but you're getting to it, and we're well satisfied. You've done a tremendous job.
Well, thank you, Joe. And
one reason I was here tonight was to draw your attention to that danger on that Harrington corner.
And maybe there's something too, and as we think of that, and you're hearing those concerns, whether it's this location or others, that to let our staff know about it, maybe there's something to be done in the interim. Cutting the hill down takes time, right? But
That helped us a lot.
good.
When they built that.
Okay.
About half of that hill off.
Okay.
We need to take more.
Okay. We'll take a look at it, Joe. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else have anything regarding safety? Because I want to talk about some infrastructure next. Thank you, everybody. So I talked earlier about, a little bit about the big program, and thanks for providing comments on the big program. But structures, we think of structures and bridges in South Dakota. We have over 5,700 publicly owned bridges in South Dakota. 5,700, over 5,700 of them. And there's a reason I put all the dots on there, which are actually bridges in blue, because you can actually see the creeks and the tributaries if you look at it, kind of take a step back. It's not modern art, and I don't know what you want to call it, structure art. But it's kind of neat to be able to see that. You can actually see the Big Sioux River, the Jim River. And as we look at transportation needs, you think of South Dakota, where South Dakota been over the course of the last 100 years. A lot of our infrastructure was built in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, especially on our local government roads. So a large focus, whether it's the Bridge Improvement Grant Program, the new local federal program, is trying to improve the condition of those structures across our state, because it doesn't do us any good to go Oates in the back 40 if you can't bail it and haul it to where you need to go. So that interconnectedness is critical. And a lot of those commodities get on the highways and they get on the rail. So our Transportation Commission is focused heavily on that interconnected transportation system. As we look at the state system alone, our condition, we do a measurement of good, fair, and poor. Bridges are inspected about every 2 years. Our goal is to maintain 95% of our bridges in good, fair condition. Now, it doesn't mean a poor condition bridge is unsafe. Our team will go out, and if there's an unsafe situation, we will post it, we will close it. It just means that asset's getting to the point of diminishing returns. It needs to get replaced at some point. You can no longer maintain it. So we project we're going to be able to maintain that 95% into the near future. And again, through investments like the Flat Winter Bridge, the upcoming Forest City Bridge, all these are investments and huge investments that are going to take a large chunk, but by managing those assets adequately, we feel like we can maintain those. And it's through innovation, through finding new ways to do things, whether it's trying to build in more resiliency. So if a flood does come, it doesn't knock out the bridge. Or using stainless steel rebar in our bridge decks, trying to reduce the amount of corrosion that happens so the bridges last longer. Or using unmanned aerial system, drones, to help us do inspections, catch things earlier so we can mitigate them before they become a problem. All right, and I know that our bridge engineer would say, well, once you talk about bridges, you're done. But the reality of it is a bridge is just something over water, and sometimes troubled water, for those of you that are Simon & Garfunkel fans. But pavements are important too, right? Without pavements, you don't actually have a transportation system. 8,800 miles of state-owned pavements and roadway network in our state. Again, we try to maintain no more than 20% of those pavements in that poor to fair condition. We use 4 different thresholds in our pavement. You can kind of see where we're at. We want it to be green and blue, right? None of that yellow creeping up into the 20% line. As we look into the future, we anticipate that we'll be able to maintain somewhere near that. Now, from a pavement standpoint, 2033 is a long ways out. Obviously, winters like we had last year, they can do a lot more damage on a road than a nice, easy, gentle winter. So we're anticipating we're going to be able to maintain those, but again, as things change, they're going to change. We're going to have to react to it. We're trying innovations on our pavements as well. We're looking at notched wedge joint. I talked about how we put in the rumble strips down the center by notching them, trying different techniques and innovations that are centerline. We can get those built better so they last longer, and perhaps they don't cause as much damage with those rumble strips. We also have our next generation concrete pavement, lower right-hand corner. Another innovation that we're trying to improve the ride and sustainability of that concrete pavement. In the upper left-hand corner, that is not a fish locator. I know that somebody thought that was one of our fish locators we had up there and had the wrong picture in there. Actually, what we're trying to do there is we're trying to ensure that as we pave that asphalt, that we're rolling it in a time frame where the thermal properties, where the asphalt is still warm, but we can get that compaction, get that density that we need. It's called intelligent compaction. So the driver is actually on there, and the different colors represent the temperature of that pavement where his roller has been to ensure that we're getting the best compaction we possibly can as that asphalt laid. Again, new innovations, techniques that we're trying to improve the transportation system, make sure things last longer. Now, Jason, I know we got a lot of work coming up in the Pierre region. You just want to hit just generally overall what you're seeing in as far as investments?
Absolutely. So this slide represents the major categories of construction that we're going to experience here in the Pierre region. Overall, we have $566 million worth of investments that we're going to be making over the next 4 years. That's a significant investment. Like Mike said, that's larger than our whole program was not that many years ago. Maybe we're dating ourselves a little bit, but nonetheless, it's a significant investment. So, but before I get into the totals and more of the details about this, I want to point out that in the back of the room there is a tentative STIP list. I hope you all were able to grab one of them. But in addition to that, there's also a map showing all of the projects that we have scheduled for the next 4 years, actually beyond. The map is color-coded by year, so all the projects that show up in red are going to be in fiscal year 24. Projects in green are 25, blue 26, and finally purple in FY 27. Now,
One question for you though, Jason.
yes, sir.
Why is there gold up there? You didn't mention.
Well, that's a great question, Mike. So the department identifies issues with our roadways, and we have a large group of teams that go out there and look at our roadways every single day. And these roadways that are shown in gold are actually roads that we know we're going to have to do a project here in the next 8-10 years. So we've identified them as being in our long-range plan. Now, we're looking at the data, we're looking at traffic, we're looking at the cracking patterns, we're looking at, how the road is interacting to try and figure out what exactly we need to do with that roadway. So I anticipate that those projects showing up in gold will be rolling into the tentative STIP and the final STIP here in the next 3 to 4 years. So those are projects that just showing it's on our list, and we're working our way to get there. So thanks for the question, Mike. This is also available online, so if you click on any of those roadways, a little bit more information about those projects will show up. So, but in the Pierre region, at any rate, like I said, we have a lot of grading work coming up. This is one of our most significant safety type projects that we have on our whole slate of projects. $193 million worth of work in the next 4 years. And we'll go into some of the more significant projects here in a bit. But in addition to that, surfacing, that's kind of our bread and butter. Those are the asphalt overlays and the mill and overlays that we do commonly and get down the road and replace the asphalt. $260+ million in that category. Bridges, we have over $55 million worth of work that we're going to be doing in 4 years. And that's including state and county bridges. And then, like I talked about a little bit ago, just over $50 million in the safety and miscellaneous categories as well. So starting with our bridge work, there was a gentleman in the back talked about our big program and how beneficial that has been to some of our counties. Like I said, we have over $50 million of work, and each one of these stars represent a location where we're going to be either replacing or rehabbing a bridge in the next 4 years. These are all color-coded in the same format as our interactive STIP. In 2024, we have 16 structures we'll be working on. 2025, 19 structures. 26, the numbers drop down a little bit. 26 and 27, we have both 9 structures on the state system in both of those years. But I want to note that in those out years, the years 3 and 4 in our STIP, we don't always have all the information about our county structures and when they're going to hit. So I fully expect those numbers to jump up as we get more data from our local transportation system. So those numbers will likely be higher in the out years. Is that
definitely right, Mike? Yep, definitely right. So as we think about transportation, the pavements, the bridges, and the assets that are out there, again, I'm going to ask a question, so I need some more help from you. But what have you seen work? How can we get better? Whether, again, it's our pavements, our bridges, or maybe other things, lighting, signals, things that you've seen in other states. Again, things that we're doing well. Again, reinforcement. Or, hey, you didn't do so great on this. Here's something I think you should be working on. So be thinking about that. Hopefully everybody's got their cheat sheet in front of them. They're taking notes and they're ready to go. So anybody have any ideas and thoughts that we can do to help improve our infrastructure?
One thing I got a comment on.
Yeah.
Is
can we get the
bike path in Rapid City.
Okay.
Go around when you're
truck
going
route?
around. go through the 15, 16 loads of cattle that's waiting in the fall. There's so many stoplights and you're doing this,
Sure.
but one thing that really helped is those flashing yellow lights.
Okay.
You know if that thing's flashing, you better get slowed down, because you ain't gonna make that line. And that's helped us tremendously. We sure appreciate those.
Especially when you're fully loaded, I assume.
Yeah,
Joe?
when you're loaded,
And
go down yellow or up, and you know that light's
Yep.
flashing at you. Don't try to beat that light, because you're not going
Yep.
to.
And the flashing lights, I'm thinking, those are we got a warning sign on the side of the road before you get to the signal, saying, hey, when flashing, be prepared to stop. Okay,
Helped us a lot.
okay. Good. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Good. Anybody else? Well, if not, we're gonna have time afterwards too to visit, so we do wanna hear from you and how we can get better. Jason, you mentioned significant projects earlier on. You're gonna go through some of those, so maybe just highlight some of the big projects coming up in the Pierre region.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go through these year by year, and I'm only going to touch on a couple of the projects. There's a lot of work going to be happening. In the top right corner, there's a summary of all the work that's happening over each fiscal year. But on the left-hand side of your tentative STIP map, there's a number, and that's the number that I'm referring to in each one of these slides. So if you want to flip through, there's a little bit more information about each of these projects. So the first project that I want to touch on is project number 10. That's an asphalt resurfacing project, full depth reclamation project on several routes in just west of Mobridge. That's on Highway 12, on Highway 63, on 1806, on 1806P. So there's a lot of roadways that are kind of lumped into one project. It's going to be a really nice project. Those roadways need a little bit of work, and they've reached the end of their life, and we'll be repaving those and working out some of the rough areas that we have on some of those stretches.
Jason, real quick on that one, did you miss a decimal somewhere?
22.
177 miles. That is 177 miles for 117 million.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're gonna be up in that area, it's gonna be a lot of work going on here in the next year.
So that's for the whole region. That's the region.
Okay, good. I thought that was number 10.
Nope,
Okay,
sorry, number
22.8. Okay.
number 10 is $22.8 million. No, we can't spend that much money just on that one project.
Okay, good.
I would if you'd let me.
Well,
So, at any rate, that's about a $23 million job. There's going to be a lot of work going on up there, and we'll have some real nice roadways when we're done. Well, the next project that we have is project number 20, and that's South Dakota 73 from Kadoka south 13 miles to just past the White River. We're going to completely regrade that road. That road currently is narrow, doesn't have much for shoulders on it, so we're going to widen that roadway, and it's going to be take out some of the vertical and horizontal curves on those roads. We're going to have a real nice road going south of Kadoka when that project is finished. That's about a $21 million project at this point. Moving forward to 2025, we're going to be working on over 200 miles of roadway in the Pierre region alone for over $107 million. First significant project I want to touch on is a project that Joe mentioned here earlier today, project number 72, and that's US Highway 18 from South Dakota 73 over to Antelope Road, and this is just east of Martin if you're not familiar with those roadways. We're going to completely regrade that roadway as well and provide interim surfacing, and then the following year we'll come back and put surfacing on that roadway. One that some of the folks in the room here from town might be interested in is project number 84, and that's the reconstruction of Euclid Avenue in Pierre from Sioux Avenue all the way through town to the north edge of town where the road becomes 4-lane divided. That project is currently slated to be approximately $16 million or just over. And at this point in time, we've done a little bit of engineering. We think it's going to be a 3-year project. Now, that's a lot of time for the traveling public in Pierre to be disrupted, especially when it's a north-south route and most of our traffic is east and west. So there's going to be some disruptions, but we're working on some things, some different innovative ideas to try and cut that down into a 2-year project. In 2026, we're going to be working on 132 miles of road. Two of the significant projects, again, that we have is in that same area just west of Mobridge, project number 143 on your list. There's a You probably can't see it very well on the map, but there's a tiny little blue dot right in the middle of all that red work. And what that is, that's an intersection project. Just on the east side of the casino, there's Highway 1806 and Highway 12 intersect. And it's right on a hill, on a grade of a hill, and there's some sight distance problems there. So what we're going to do is we're going to move Highway 12 a little bit to the north and cut off a portion of that hill and improve that sight distance, because we've had some safety issues going on in that area. So that's going to be a real nice project when we get it done and improve the safety significantly in that area. And then again, on Highway 18, project number 139, another reconstruction project. We're going to do some grading and structure work, and this will be west of Martin. And we also have a structure replacement project on that job. That'll be about a $20 million project. I'm sorry, that'll be a $40 million project. So, and then last but not least, in 2027, we have 3 significant projects that I want to touch on. Overall, this fiscal year, we have quite a bit of work already slated, $145 million worth of work. The first is project number 200. This is a project that came about as a result of this meeting. So this is a grading project from South Dakota 20 on South Dakota 63 from 20 south towards Eagle Butte. We got comments from the Cheyenne River Tribe and said, this is a problem for us. We really feel like our citizens that live up here are in danger. So we looked at it, we looked at the data, and we agreed with them that, yeah, we do have some issues here. So we're going to reconstruct this. Again, we'll make it wider, better shoulders, and hopefully eliminate some of those run off the road type of accidents that Mike mentioned earlier. Moving a little bit to the south, project number 205 is the reconstruction of the interchange straight south of Fort Pierre here on the interstate at exit 212. We got to looking at that. We have the structure is ready to be replaced. We have some vertical clearance issues at that site. So we're going to raise that bridge and regrade the ramps, the approach pavement, and make that a really nice project when it's all done. That in and of itself will probably be a 2-year project as well. So there'll be a little bit of an inconvenience. We've been working with the folks down there at the coffee cup to try and mitigate some of those inconveniences. And I think we have a pretty good plan in place to try and make that a good project. And then last but not least, project number 206. This is also a project that came about as a result of this meeting. We had a contingent of folks from down in that area that came up year after year after year and said, this is a tough road. It's not safe. We need to do something. So we're going to be reconstructing with a grading project, South Dakota 44, from east of Wood over to the Tripp County line. You'll also see on that map that there's a gold line going further to the east. That is also in our list of projects that we're going to be working on in the future. But hopefully we'll eliminate some curves and some other geometric issues that we have there and make that roadway significantly safer.
Jason, you mentioned quite a few grading and interim surfacing, so
right.
Just maybe briefly what that is, and then that's not final surface. But
correct. Okay, so grading and interim surfacing, what we do is we grade the roadway, and then we spray on an asphalt a blotter on the surface, so you get a hard surface on it. And then we let it sit for over one winter, and then we'll come back the next summer and put an asphalt overlay or a concrete overlay or whatever the final surfacing is going to look like on that. So, but no matter what we do to compact that roadway, it's going to move around a little bit with the spring rains and the winters, and so we want to let that sit a little bit and get that settled before we put our final surfacing on, so the surface doesn't break up when we put it on.
Great. Well, again, I think we've had some good comments regarding safety and how we can improve our infrastructure. And again, I want to open up for comments on specific projects, or maybe you got something that came up as you were sitting here tonight thinking about safety or infrastructure. So again, another opportunity to hear from you. Concerns you got, maybe it's one of the items you have in here or something that we're totally missing on the list. So if you have any ideas or thoughts, please raise your hand and Mark will bring the microphone around to you. Couple up here.
That Highway 73 project, Canova South.
Yep.
when you cross that river, there's a spring hole in the middle of the road. Are you gonna change that road at all, or can you guys fought it. I was just wondering, are you gonna try to fix it, or are you gonna move the road, or try to fix what's there? When you go on the south side of that bridge, south and going halfway up that hill.
Okay, so the project is going to go slightly south of the river. And I'm going to refer to our area engineer, Doug Sherman. He's going to have more information on the site that you might be talking about.
I know they built that patch 3 or 4 times, and they say there's a spring hole right at the road.
Okay.
Yeah, what we have there is a pretty massive slide area. Our geotech people have been watching that pretty close. And the grading, by the time we get down to that point there, we're almost kind of tying back in. I think the approach that we were going to take on that is we may do a little work to just kind of enhance it, but where we've kind of got it stopped moving now, we really don't want to just open it up and disturb it either. So that's what you're going to kind of see there. That's right on the tail end of that project there. But I know that slide area very well, and it's been a thorn many times in my career.
Thank you. I didn't want to draw your attention, but I will share you, that's okay, what you do or where. I wanted to know if they were going to change.
Thank you, Joe.
Mike, how do you, considering the Euclid project, describe how you collaborated with the city of Pierre on that?
Yeah, great question. Mike Weisgram asked a question regarding how our collaboration went with the city of Pierre, and maybe I'll hit the broad for how we do it statewide, and then Jason and Dean can get into a little bit with the city of Pierre as well. So any transportation project that we have out there, I think the key to this is that a lot of times this is the lifeblood for a community, right? Especially for some of our smaller communities. There's one state highway that comes through their town, and that's really the lifeblood. So as the project starts and the ideas start, it's not as if we just go approach the city for the first time and talk about transportation. Our area staff have been in contact. They've got relationships built with city staff over time, so we're monitoring other issues through town. And as those lines kind of come up, they're sharing, it looks like we might be looking at a reconstruction 8-10 years, or that whatever that time frame is. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, to prepare the city for, hey, we're going to have some pretty significant impacts to our community. But a lot of times those water and sewer lines go right underneath our highway. And so when we work with our smaller communities, the capital's not always there, next year or 2 years from now to replace the trunk line through town. So we try to get early with them. Hey, we're looking at doing some major work. If you're looking at utility upgrades, now would be a good time to think about it. Work with them, and sometimes we get involved with Department of Ag and Natural Resources with their revolving loan fund for some of those improvements too, to make sure they're aware of it and try to leverage those opportunities. So it's a collaborative process, I'd say, throughout the concept that we term it as, the concept or the idea of the project, through the design process, and then as we get to construction as well, with invitations for the preliminary design. So they'll come with us in the van and look at the preliminary design and the final design, so that we have that opportunity to share. Yeah, we see issues here, we see issues there, and we really try to build it for everybody that uses the facility, and the folks that drive through town as well. So that's generally how we do it. Maybe a little bit on how we manage things in Pierre.
So with this job in particular, we've been talking to the city of Pierre for well over a decade. And as a matter of fact, our last meeting with them about this project was 2 days ago. So we're still in the communications with them. And on this job in particular, the city chose to do a lot of their utility work at the same time, so to renew and replace all of that. And we have 3 major outfalls for water to flow off of Euclid Avenue. One is at 4th Street, one is at Winoka, and then one is at the bottom of the hill. And so at the same time, so we're going to shoot the water off down Winoka into Hildress Gulch, and at the same time they're saying, well, we just did Highland Avenue. What are you going to do there? Well, okay, yeah, we'll make sure we take care of that and fix it back up. But we don't want them to do a bunch of work in advance of the work coming back and just tearing up with our project. Another recent example, we had some pre-construction meetings with some of our contractors who have an interest in this job, saying, here's our plan for construction. How do we do? What are we hitting the nail on the head? And they brought some things to light that we hadn't thought of. One of them was, well, how are we going to get our trucks in and out of this project? You can't go under the train bridge because it's too low. We thought, well, geez, we never thought about that. So back to the city. So we're talking with the city. So they're telling us we can't go under the bridge. What do we have for options for city streets? Are there any local routes that we can use for halt roads? And if so, do we need to enter into an agreement with them on that? So the collaboration with the city has been numerous and constant. All I can say is we have a very good relationship with them to date, and we want to keep it that way. And we've been working hard. And Dean, anything to add with the collaboration with the city on that point? Okay, great.
And I think, you know, we've talked a little bit before of, boy, if we could just go in there and build our infrastructure, and I know it kind of sounds a little selfish, right? Rebuild the road, we could probably get these jobs done in about half the time. You know, maybe not at half the time, but significant cut down the duration of impact. But in the same sense, this is the one opportunity for the community to get in there and replace their utilities without having to go through a huge expense of tearing up the roadway and having it backfilled. So as we look at it, we're trying to partner as best we can with communities. We rebuild those roads, and it's a partnership. There's definitely an impact to those communities when those projects come through. Great question. Thank you. Sure.
Jason Reeves again, same project. So we're talking about innovation. That project, well, put back to last week in Rapid City. There was a gentleman formerly from Colorado, formerly from a trucking company, and he was talking about roundabouts. And I believe that project was originally scoped to have a roundabout or two on it, and it was eliminated. And so just thinking of some other innovations, because 3 years seems like a long time to construct that. Like you said, that, you know, Sioux is your main east-west corridor, but that's one of your only main north-south ones that go all the way through town. So, yeah, I guess, I mean, and are you doing, like, I think about that street toward the north end, and there's not as many lights, signal lights on that street as there is like Sioux. So, I mean, are there going to be safety options for pedestrians, stuff like that? You know, suck it in at the intersections so it's not so wide for them to cross and stuff like that. Obviously, the beautification type of stuff like that costs time on projects, so maybe that's where the 3 years is coming from. But just some looking in, you know, just ask a little bit on that, you know, a little more innovation. Like, considering some of the innovation got eliminated from it, if you want to call roundabouts innovation.
And, you know, as ideas come up, and I think, you know, whether it's Euclid or any project, generally when we start a project, we've got a wide variation of options and alternatives. And those get narrowed down and narrowed down and narrowed down and narrowed down through public involvement process and through other means until we get to the kind of what we consider the preferred alternative and start moving through. So, I mean, it's common to see all these different alternatives in a project, and we get to a planning study, there's 14 different options up on the board. And again, we're trying to ensure that we're looking at all ideas as we move forward. And as far as innovation and improving some sequencing and timing, Jason, it sounds like you've got some good input from contractors on ways to possibly trim this thing down. So one of the things you've done is work with external stakeholders and not necessarily just the DOT staff, which are great and wonderful. But as they get to talk with other contractors, maybe seen other things, done things in other states, maybe something you want to hit on.
Yeah, so like I said, we had meetings with some of our contractors for constructability reviews is what we called those. They gave us some really good ideas. We also had conversations with some of the local businesses in the area saying, how is this going to impact you when we come through here? You know, our plan is to build this first segment, and I'll give you an example. The first segment was planned to build from Sioux Avenue up to about Capitol Avenue. So in that area, we have a post office, we have Walgreens, we have a gas station, we have a couple of banks in that general area, and that's going to be impacted. Those are places people in Pierre go, right? So especially like the gas stations, closing down their accesses is very difficult for them. So we talked through with some of our engineers, and one of the ideas was, well, maybe instead of using asphalt paving in that area, maybe we can look at concrete paving. Because what we can do is we can pave an entrance and then come by, regrade in another area and pave their next entrance. So they're not closed down all the time. So that's one of the options we're looking at now for that southern portion of the roadway, from Sioux Avenue up to about Pleasant Avenue, where that ties in. So that's something we're kicking around. One of the other things we're looking at is, hey, if we give incentives to our contractors to bring in multiple crews, maybe a crew is working on the south portion of the road and a crew is working clear up on the north portion of the road, and we leave the center open, maybe they can knock this out in 2 years. So we're looking at different innovative contracting methods with regards to contract time to maybe put an incentive and get them in here, get them in, get them out, and then the thought is to stay out for another 40, 50 years. So some of those types of things we've been working really hard with our area office and our designers to try and streamline the contracting portion of it.
Good questions. One last comment. You mentioned the constructability reviews, and as somebody who represents an industry and a bunch of contractors, I think that's great that you guys do that. I mean, they can be innovative also, and it helps too in tweaking out your cost estimates. I think that was 16 million or whatever it was, and then if your bid comes in at 25, and you throw your hands in the air and go, oh my goodness, it was $9 million over, why? And you call the contractor and ask him, and he goes, well, you guys didn't look at this, and you didn't look at that, or whatever it might be. Whereas when you do the constructability reviews, they give those ideas out there so that, it can potentially help the cost of that project too. So I think that's great you guys do that.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of that's value driven, how we get more value out of the investment. Yep, great. We did have one comment that came in regarding improving some pedestrian safety. Comment regarding using some, I think, we don't necessarily have them here in Pierre. I know we have some out in Aberdeen, but the audible pedestrian signals. So those of you that are aware of those, it's a chirp that you hear on the other side as you push a button, intended for our hearing impaired and some others as well. But maybe there's an opportunity to increase the chirp rate on there to also inform drivers that there's people that are pedestrians using that crossing as well. That's a focus nationally we're seeing is in pedestrian safety, so that may be something that we'll have to take a look at. We are working right now with innovation in Federal Highway for nighttime pedestrians. So we're trying to learn from others across the nation how they help improve pedestrian safety, especially during nighttime, which from the statistics, pedestrians are much more vulnerable at that time of night. So that's another thing that we're working on. So thanks for the comment. Anybody else tonight? Okay, well, if you have some ideas you wanted to bring up, but maybe didn't want to raise your hand and share them with a large group, Mark's going to be right over here next to the safety area and the infrastructure. So if you got ideas or comments on safety or infrastructure, please go share those with Mark. He'd be more than happy to visit with you and take your ideas and your thoughts down. Oh, yes, please. Go ahead, Joe.
One more
Yeah, please.
request. When you rebuild that 18 that you're talking about, I don't know if you're familiar, in 63, they built it from Martin out to the junction 18.
Okay.
The old highway, 18. County has it now. Okay. That's really getting in tough shape, and we were wondering, when you rebuild the two projects you're talking about, could we get our name in the hat again for some of them old millings that the county can use to fix those?
Great question, Joe. And that's something that I think we need to continue to leverage right now is our partnerships between the state and the county and the townships. If there's excess material on certain projects, and I can't commit anything to you on that, because generally what we try to do is we try to reuse everything that we've got. Whether it's milling up that asphalt and putting it back into new asphalt, recycling it back in, or putting it back in as gravel. But I know if that's something the county might be interested in, we have excess material. So we'll make that available to the county for a price, right? It's not free, but for a price generally on that. And Doug's here so we can make note of that if we have any excess material, maybe that's an opportunity too. So great question. Leverage those.
Tonight, put our name in the hat. So if you do have some of that too.
Sure. Sounds great. Thank you. All right. I believe Doug and Dean are going to be over by the region map, so if you get any questions on projects, they can head over there and they'll visit with you about any projects maybe we didn't cover. If you got anything else, Secretary John's here. Mark Leiferman, our Project Development Program Manager. Thanks for all your work at this. Levi, thanks for all your work. Levi's our STIP coordinator. Appreciate all your work. And then Mark Rice and Steve Graham. Mark's in the back. He's been the one handing out. So thank you for all your work over the course of the last several months pulling this all together. Great job, and I think we've got some great comments to continue to improve. For the record, how many folks do we have tonight?
21 in attendance.
21 in attendance. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. Don't forget, if you made a comment, you're allowed a free state highway map. Even if you didn't make a comment, you can get one too. Thank you, everybody. Drive safe. Thank you.